All right. Okay. So I'm kind of excited about this one, to be honest, personally. Because I just kind of more or less learned that we have levels of differences of opinions about some of these characters, such
The
as the
personalities,
quartering. Yeah,
of the
personalities.
personality.
There's the quartering, there's Tim Pool, there's Candace Owens, and I guess you could say you can even add into it the Daily Wire with like Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro and stuff like that. And so um, I think a good starting point is kind of the quartering. Um, I kind of came across the quartering a long time ago when he was like way early on
Yep.
when he was just starting,
I
and
watched him then.
yeah, and
He
I
did a
was
lot of video
like
game. He did a lot of video game stuff and like
Magic
Star
the
Wars.
Gathering type stuff.
Yeah, so he fit right along with that Star Wars girl type of thing in terms of content where they started out. It was I'm not sure who know who that is or not, but
Yeah, I know who
yeah.
that is.
So it
Um,
was he was kind of that content, and he'd have some new stuff sometimes, and he turned into more of a Tim Pool type of personality eventually.
yeah,
Different,
he
yeah.
kind of became more of like a culture warrior in a sense, right? And so uh I've kind of been with him on his journey here and there. I mean, I kind of take breaks on most of these people periodically. I might go a number of months without watching their videos, and then I kind of hop back in and I check them out for a while. And so, um, gosh, where do I even want to start?
Okay,
I guess
so I'll tell you my stance on the courting first.
yeah.
So I also have watched him, and only recently I decided I unsubscribed and I don't want to have him show up all the time in my feed. So it's not that he can't say some of the things that are right, but he was just up and down with things and emotional and kind of annoying because he was causing fights that didn't need to be there. I think amongst friendlies. Um, I think it's fine to criticize, but I don't think he was criticizing. I think he was actually kind of attacking different people, like
Hmm.
on a whim. With a story comes out, and he just attacks instead of like talking about, well, if he does this, he didn't have his sit back method anymore. So I was like, okay, you're on a timeout, so maybe I'll go back to him at some point. But he didn't have any. I don't. I mean, he's whatever. He's
Okay,
I
so
don't hate him. I'm just annoyed with him.
fair enough. I mean, so you kind of you would kind of dub yourself as a conservative, right?
Yes, I am a conservative.
Right, and you typically watch more or less like you've been consistent on like Daily Wire type of content, right?
Yes, Daily
Right,
Wire type content. I They said I used to be a Rush 24/7 listener for many many years before he
right.
passed.
So
And
conservative,
yeah, oh yeah,
conservative guy. So one of the things that people often kind of feel with the quartering is that he is a conservative guy. Now, when I first kind of got to know him in his early days, I kind of understood that he wasn't actually a conservative, but that he had some conservative values that kind of ended up matching up. They
yeah.
kind of aligned
I
with
never thought he
something.
was conservative. I think there is there are a lot of Tim Pool like minded people over the last 5 years.
Sure,
So like,
sure.
what I'm saying is, when I'm saying Tim Pool, like what I mean is like there are people that are just kind of apolitical that maybe they felt a certain way, but they're more just about the anti woke and more based in the issues of today instead of being, well, what the why would you have that take? So like he fits in that category of being more based. Same thing with like a
Yep.
Tim Pool and all this. So it's more like a based take on like this is a reality situation that we're dealing with. Like Jimmy Dore is a Democrat guy. He's a but he's just based on many things.
He's based, but still far left.
Yes. So like he fits.
Yeah,
So I'm saying like
yeah.
quartering, I didn't necessarily put him in the conservative camp. So I wasn't disappointed because he didn't come out conservative. So
Sure.
that's not so I was just going to check that one off the list. So if you're going to try to throw that one at me.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine. But I know that he's gotten flack from a lot of conservative type of people who try to put him in that camp. Like Matt Walsh, he was like, I bring in more conservatives than you do. And it was like, well, he's not really trying to bring in conservatives. Like that's not his aim, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think some things to kind of understand, at least from my
Matt Walsh isn't
interpretation.
perfect either. I just really appreciate
Sure.
his trans fight because he's trying to.
And so does the quartering, right?
Right.
And so I think that something to kind of understand about, from my perspective about the quartering is, I think that the quartering is, as far as content and like persona and character that kind of goes out, I think he's kind of like troll first, humor first. But he doesn't, I don't think that I think he has a really good heart. I don't know if you know some of the things that he's done that have really helped people out.
He does white knight, so he likes to go find people to defend.
He does.
And so, I mean,
to some degree, yeah.
Like, I'm gonna like. You think we're gonna disagree much, and I think we're gonna disagree less than you think.
Okay.
It's like, yes, I noticed that, but I would rather watch many other things before him at this point. So he was showing me my feed every single day. It's just like, no, thank you. Get out of there. I know you're there. I know where to find you if I ever need to find you.
Sure.
Again.
So some of the things that I actually really appreciate, I think while he trolls and stuff, him having the ability to troll and having the personality and persona to troll a little bit, kind of allows him to dip his toes into criticism, in some areas towards people that he's more or less in favor of. And I think that depending on who he's criticizing and the way that he does it, I think it can end up panning out with where it's not necessarily breaking relationships. So like he trolls and he criticizes Tim Pool like fairly, like often enough. But I think that his criticisms are pretty accurate.
So
at times.
So like the problem is when you troll people that don't know what you're doing because they don't know you and they have their own circle. Right. What I'm saying is that like he sits there and trolls. So if I go and randomly troll a stranger in real life, they're gonna be like, F you, buddy, or whatever, right?
Sure.
But that's how they're gonna react.
Okay,
and that's normal. So like Tim Pool doesn't know, it's not quite that example, but like they had a spat recently during the whole Eliza Blue debacle, which is not important for anyone to look up. It's just lame.
Yeah. But he called out, I think he really called out Tim Pool on that. And I think that was there was a lot of validity to it.
I do. So I liked how he did it at first until he got late night on his bed on Twitter and saying things like when I was watching his show, seriously, he puts out like 4 videos a day. I used to watch a lot of them or listen to a lot of them anyhow. He used to say, hey, I don't know what Tim's doing in this. I think I would really like to see him cover this and whatever else. He was saying that type of thing. Very moderate, said, hey, I think he's really missing out. This is part of the cultural war and all that kind of stuff. He would say that type of thing, but I feel like he didn't get any traction. So then he just started like yelling at Tim Pool and started being more negative. And Tim Pool is not perfect. He's definitely done something.
Well, sure.
And in fact, he even said eventually as he found out about it that, hey, this was actually bigger than I thought it was. And maybe I should have done something sooner. So, and then he did lash out in anger in response to like all these people that are flooding his chat with things about, you talk about Eliza Blue, and he's like, I don't care, because he thought the whole thing was a whole troll
story. That's one of the major problems with Tim Pool, though, is that he can be very selective on what it is that he covers. He will cover certain aspects of drama, but he will not cover things if he has been associated or if he's had them on their show. Then he's like, I'm just staying away. And he can be really because he can be really dismissive of a lot of these kinds of topics. I mean, you look at what's the dude who had the big beard thing,
yeah.
and he got cut, and he was the whole cut thing, and it was like it just completely. He was like, you know what, this is just drama. I don't even want to talk about this. It was like, hold on a second, like you had this guy on for so long, and you just want to like say. You just want to dismiss it as it's just pieces of drama. Meanwhile, you sit there and you dive into all kinds of other bits and pieces of drama. But because you had him on your show so much, you're like, I don't want to talk about this. And then he has when he has Eliza Blue on, and what is she like? She comes on and she's just blah blah blah.
I
She's
couldn't
saying
handle
all
that
kinds of
show. That
crazy
episode,
stuff.
I was like, oh, I was
and
like,
he doesn't even want to address it, right? He
Yeah.
doesn't even want to address it.
she was an HR. She was like, you got to worry about HR with that girl, like immediately. I'm not, as soon as I saw on the show, I'm like,
Okay,
don't say
but
anything that's a little bit off.
okay, but if Tim Pool is like, okay, it's there's a pattern. There's a pattern of what Tim Pool does. I respect Tim Pool. I like Tim Pool. I watch him often, right? But I don't think that there's any denying, and I don't think that and I think it's worthy criticism to point out, especially when the Quartering does it, which I appreciate when the Quartering does it, when he's like, hey, you know what? You have all of this drama that is orbiting you, and you don't want to talk about any of it. You just want to dismiss it as a drama, and you'll ignore the super chats. You'll ignore all the chat just being like, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. And he just goes off. So the Quartering is really holding him more accountable than anything. He's pointing out, hey, I personally believe
up
that
at first, but then I think that the Quartering kept on going with it.
Well, yeah, because because Tim Pool never really responded. He never addressed it.
No,
until maybe when the Quartering stops, he addresses it. That after Tim Pool addresses it, sure.
Then he'll stop. Is that there's a certain point. Oh man, we're talking about a story that people might not even know who the hell Eliza Blue is. It's funny.
Andrew Tate, Eliza Blue. You figure,
it's that type of thing. He was talking. He was trying to get Tim involved, and eventually Tim does cover it for a whole episode, basically. For a whole IRL episode. He did talk about it, say, bring it up. You know, I do realize it's an important whole concept. I talked to Jeremy. Yeah,
it was probably like a week after.
I don't care how long.
It had all died down.
I don't care how long it was, because when they did talk, after supposedly it was all fine and made up, both sides, and Jeremy put sorries on Twitter and things like that, and they went back, and it's good. But then like 3 or 4 days later, Jeremy just kept on doing his bullshit over and again. I think he just goes to sleep at night and decides he just can't shut up, and just starts twittering and making things worse again. I don't know why he had to stir the pot again, but like I feel like I don't recall it being cut out now, like that. Like they could have been, you know, like they could have fit the base space together fine, and not.
That's what I love about the Quartering, though.
It's kind of like enemies now. It's stupid.
Yeah, but that's what I love about the Quartering, is that he is not going to be. He is not inserting himself on the side of anybody. He's inserting himself on the side of himself, and his own audience that. And he doesn't play audience capture. He doesn't play with audience capture, I believe. I don't think he plays audience capture.
He does with his troll
sure. Okay.
Clickbait stuff.
But we all have, well, that's not audience capture.
He would have Tim Pool or Joe Rogan in the show name every day for months. Like one of the two of them, always. It's not like Elon Musk.
Out of four videos a day, probably. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that he would be talking about them at least in one kind of thing, and just stringing along. But that's where you kind of got to understand.
But does the news story thing where it sounds more crazy than it is, and it comes to the story and it's actually not that bad. So it's like sensationalizing to get clicks. So I'm saying. You're saying he doesn't do that within.
Well, that's just clickbait. I mean, everybody does.
Doesn't do that
clickbait is
his
standard.
Show.
Clickbait is standard. And when he talks about these kinds of things in his things, I don't think that he's going off the wall on a lot of these things. He's calling out. I mean, he has the humor and he has the trolly aspect of things, but like, if you kind of have to going into it with the Quartering, you kind of have to understand that this is just how he rolls. And once you can kind of accept that, then I guess then
Sure.
those are the people who are part of the audience capture, I guess you would
So
say,
I
are the
haven't
people
watched.
with a sense of humor who can kind of latch on to those kinds of things
I
and
haven't
find
watched
the
in a while.
humor in those.
I do appreciate Sydney that he has on. It was on Wednesdays or Thursdays. They were trying to do a thing, right? I'm
Hmm.
not sure if that's still going on or not. I'm assuming it is.
I don't know.
Okay.
I know that they have some sort of work
Yeah,
today
some sort of
together.
separate podcast. They do like a 3 hour show on on one day a week, I think, unless it's more than that
Sure.
now. So Sydney is part of. So it's interesting that Sydney and him got along and hooked up in that way. I mean, in the digital, um,
Hmm.
whatever type of way.
In the digital space.
Yeah, digital space.
Sure.
Because she's like a YouTube creator that just creates um, snarky videos talking about how stupid
Stupid
things
stuff
are
is.
that
Right.
happens. Right.
Yeah.
Like what the hell is this? And like and she says some based stuff. She's in the based space area. Um, but like just his YouTube videos, she had a show for a short time on the Blaze, which there is a lawsuit over. Um, and so I don't really know necessarily how that fell into
I
things.
can't
That's
say
why.
I've really paid much attention to that.
Yeah. So she did some accusing of some sexist stuff or whatever on the part of her
Sure.
co-host. So, which is weird coming from her. I would imagine it
Who
would have to be
knows?
pretty bad for her to do that
There probably was some. I mean,
because
maybe there probably was something. You
it
know.
would take somebody pulling my pants down and grabbing my wiener in front of people for me to report somebody, right? I mean, they could say all the stuff they want, and I could be like, "Hey, stop, asshole." That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do it. I mean, obviously, if it got to the point where they're completely going crazy, where they're getting physical, yes, of course, you say, "Hey, this person needs to be fired." You know, I can't. I don't
Sure.
know.
Sure. But I mean, that's Sydney Watson
Sorry,
and
I
him and her,
tangent.
him and
We're
the
talking about
quartering and her. They have a really good
they're
relationship,
together.
and she's probably among the top people that he respects,
Yes.
that he really likes. And I think that there's something in that relationship that kind of more speaks towards, and I know that you like her, and I think that that kind of speaks more towards where his heart is, right? Like when
Yes.
you kind of mentioned that he's gone out and kind of found people who have basically kind of been hit in really unfair
Yes.
ways,
He
and
loves
they've
to
been
defend and
taken
whatnot.
down.
He does have a good heart. You're correct.
There was the girl who got she made some review on some game, and then these people just came and they just like completely decimated her. They just did all this stuff, and they were just
He was about Harry,
cruel.
it was about Harry Potter's. Yeah, about the Harry Potter game.
Yeah, and he supported her
Yeah.
a lot. There was this other guy. He was kind of this he was like a fat guy, and he wasn't you know, he was kind of cheesy and corny or whatever, but he was like clearly a super sweet guy. And he was like looking for a friend or whatever, and so he was like, you know, helping him out in whatever way he could there. Just kind of like bringing his audience, and this is one of the things that I think is important. He can be very trolly. He can kind of be an a-hole in all kinds of ways, but then you also look at his audience, and his audience is very supportive of all of these kinds of people. You know, we can laugh at all kinds of silly things,
Yeah.
but when it really comes down to the heart of the matter, I think he stands much taller than most of their other people that are out there. Most other people, I mean, you can look at a lot of the things of the Daily Wire and what they do. They basically are just like they just have like negative type talk surrounding whatever the hot political issue is. They don't really take time
I get
to
it.
kind of highlight
I do find
the nice aspects and the positive aspects of the culture and who we are at heart, and kind of he in a sense allows us to express ourselves through helping out and just giving attention and helping out in whatever ways we can. He
That's
opens
fine.
those kinds of doors.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, I mean, it's good to be human and to get to show what it's good to demonstrate what being a human looks like. It's
and he
more
trolls
that
his way through it.
It's more that it was just constant drama. It's like
he's a drama
high school.
channel. I mean, he's mostly a drama
high
channel.
school drama that I was like, I'm just not down with the high school drama day to day. That's how I felt. Now,
Sure.
maybe it isn't like that, but that's how it made me feel, and that's why I was like, I just go away. I'm trying to,
and I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's perfectly valid because he is more or less a drama channel. He kind of seeks out and finds weird, stupid, quirky things that are going on in society, that our culture is the direction that our culture is going, and he criticizes it. But I think that there's things that he does that calls out things that other people don't really do. I don't find anybody else who calls out Tim on him straying away from engaging in covering stories that are important simply because, as it would seem, he's had them on his show and he doesn't want to.
So the actual
pussyfoot around it.
I've watched all the shows around that of Tim, including After Hours. Mm-hmm. So the deal with that is Jeremy constantly has the drama stuff going on in his channel.
Mm-hmm.
And so he assumed, without really looking into a lot of these things, is like, yeah, he deals with trauma. Oh, they said my name and his drama. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with that part. So he didn't give the ideas any attention because he was dismissing the content as a whole because of the drama and focus that he's not interested in. It's not that he saw enough of this information. It's one thing, you can take in information with a certain kind of mindset and it means something completely different when you take it in with a different mindset. So like he could have heard all the information, and it doesn't mean that he has to snap into attention and do things how we would think Tim Pool would do them. He had this idea that he just does. He tends to always get involved in these drama things, and he's not about that. And so that was his generalized idea. But it just so happened to be that it was a big thing with Twitter and Eliza Blue and all that stuff. So it just happened to be that he was bigger than the drama that was being presented to him. So I think that's where the disconnect was. And that's when he finally came around. Tim came around and said, okay, I got it. I see the connection. I see this now. I wasn't seeing that.
He saw it beforehand. Tim understood what was going on. He didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to address it.
Intellectually, it's different. I know in my own life, I have heard. So like, okay, let's try to relate it to more people. Let's say if you have somebody and these actions of this person's a disruptive person and they do this kind of stuff, and their actions, you know exactly what they're doing. You think you understand where they're coming from, but then you realize, oh, actually, their wife left them last week or something like that, right? And like you realize, oh, and you understand the situation from a different angle now. Even though certain actions maybe don't make sense, you're like, oh, okay, this is actually part of something bigger. This is something different. So it's like, even if Tim Pool knew all the things, if he didn't have the right perspective to look at it, it's like sometimes it's hard to categorize it as something to grab onto, especially when he has everything coming at him all the time, every day.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a bit of a cop out because Tim is very good about keeping up with narratives, with information. He's a big news guy. He goes day to day and he manages to pick out top stories, and he gets to be fairly accurate on them. And when he actively avoids for like a week talking about these kinds of topics, it gets a little sus. It's kind of like what and then a pattern starts to develop. But I have a question for you.
Tim Pool has done a lot of things where
it's a pattern. It's a pattern.
Yeah.
But I have a question. Go ahead. I have a question. What do you think is the relationship between the quartering, like Jeremy and the quartering, and Tim Pool? Like, how do you think their relationship is?
I think it is now. Well, I don't know what it is since all this because I have not paid attention to that aspect. But
Hmm.
during all this and before all this, it was a passing message on Twitter or Discord about something sometimes.
But
But it
the
was more,
relationship, what do you think the
there
relationship? Because
wasn't a
there's
relationship.
messaging, there's talks, like
There wasn't a relationship. There
okay,
was a couple scenarios where one of them would back up the other one. Tim even backed up quartering on what was this? There was something where it's just on Twitter backing it up, but I was saying,
sure.
but like it's more like recognizing they are in the space. I know that quartering realizes that Tim's channel is much bigger, and I think he does try to suck from it. I feel that's what I feel like. I feel like when he copies Tim Pool's exact style with how he does his YouTube videos, along with a couple other creators now, with how the thumbnails are, with its coloring, all that kind of stuff. It was
I
nearly
think he's got very
identical.
different. His
Maybe it
thumbnails
is
look
different
totally
now,
different.
but it wasn't when at that time. Maybe that was a troll. Maybe that was a troll. I don't know, but it was like the big red letter, like Tim Pool in red, and then the other black and different fonts and stuff like that, and just like the words up on like in a different way. It was the same for a period of time, and he kept on just like I felt like he was just purposely. I didn't like it. Felt not predatory. It felt like he was definitely trying to join the club.
So as you've kind of mentioned before, a lot of people use the white and red lettering
Yes, I
with the
mentioned that off
that
off air, but yes,
yeah, but
but it
it's
has been
that
over the
is
last
super
couple of
common.
months. Yeah,
But I think that the quartering has a lot more that's kind of going on in those thumbnails. But at the same time, when it comes to thumbnails, I don't really care because when it comes to thumbnails and titles, I think it's all just meant to get attention so that you can get people to to click on them. And uh, you know, because everybody does it, I don't think that there's any negative aspect of it. What I find, here's how I interpret
so
Tim
you really want
and
to talk about the quartering this whole episode?
no,
Fine,
I'm about to move.
but
I'm about to move, but
let's pick another one after this.
there's
Yeah,
there's going to be more quartering
he's
probably.
like a very niche somebody that a lot of people won't even know about.
That's which is fine, but it's there's so the relationship that I find between Tim Pool is a very back and forth one, um, and I think that they both greatly respect each other, and I think that they both really appreciate probably more or less everything that they do for and even against each other. I think that there is a healthy level of drama. I think there's a healthy level of pushback between the two. Um,
I hope that's the case.
I don't think that Tim Pool is really negative, like actually feels
I think
negatively
that he doesn't. I
towards
think
him
he
at
purposely
all.
tries to eliminate negative from his life, and so he's like, you know what? Don't care. I think he does that in general. He's like,
Tim
okay,
Pool.
okay, that's fine. Yeah, Tim Pool in general, like he'll get
No,
mad.
if people betray Tim Pool, then I think that then he'll be like, screw this person. But the quartering,
Okay,
he when he hits, the
sure.
way I've always viewed it is when he hits, I think he hits fairly. I think he hits fairly, and he can be a little trolly. He can be a little this, a little that, or whatever. I think most of that comes through um, under humor. I think is a lot of it.
So,
Um,
so the
but
quartering
there's
came out
other people.
immediately. He came
Say
out
again.
immediately on Matt Walsh for when he had that really harsh stuff to say
When he
about
had
that.
when Matt Walsh had a terrible take, yeah, and he was like, I don't,
I
and even that,
loved it.
I thought it was great because he's like, dude, what are you talking about? You think I'm a conservative? Like, you think I'm
Oh
here to
no,
bring
not
your
that part.
people
Not that
over?
part. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about he made his starkly like brutal comments about Mulvaney. Matt Walsh.
Matt
The
Walsh.
ones, yeah, saying like,
Sure.
never gonna be, like this, and still after all of this, you will still be a man. Or thing, like he had
Sure.
this big old harsh, like, oh my God, that's mean. But like at the same time, it was like, but it was just he just saying truth as clearly as possible, and I loved it. I think it was good, and quartering came out against it like right away, and I was like, weird. That's
He was like,
weird.
dude, I presume he was kind of like, dude, that was like a little hard. Like that was a little brutal. Like I don't know that
Yes, it
I don't
was
know that that
because
was really the right kind of
it
messaging.
was brutal, but the more that I've listened to it, the more I'm like, yes, unfortunately, because the idea is that people are trying to um pretend something that isn't true, and I don't think it's helpful to them. It's like it's one thing if you want to dress up like the other sex, or if you want to live a certain way, whatever else, but
Sure.
don't live under the assumption that you are that.
So what was the Quartering's take on Matt
It's
Walsh's
been okay.
take?
So it's on Twitter, and this was months ago now, right?
I mean, you can
Uh,
maybe just if you remember the vibe of it.
so the vibe of it was there was
Like
like
that was a
there was
little
like 40%,
harsh,
right? It was
right?
more than it was really harsh. He was criticizing, saying it's insensitive, and he said some things that were not like, "Ooh, that was really hard to hear," or that was too strong. He said something along the lines of actually saying that it was saying in a critical way, like he should not have said it. It's not.
Okay.
It's
So
so
there's the Quartering's heart coming out being like, "Look, I'm in agreement with you effectively from what I'm hearing from you. I'm in agreement with you, but dude, like we're not trying." And Tim Pool even kind of says something along these lines like, "Look, like we don't need to drive this person to suicide. Like we don't need to be this
right.
harsh on this person. Like we can tell this person like, hey, come on,
But
like
Matt Walsh was
this is not
speaking to the choir on his show. He should be able to say it as
sure.
strongly and as clearly and concisely for his people as possible. That
Uh-huh.
should be a thing. And if you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it.
Right. And what the Quartering is gonna do is he's gonna say, dude, if you don't want to listen to what the Quartering has to say, then you don't have to listen to it. But he's gonna be like, dude, that like look, I'm on board with you on a lot of this stuff, but that's a line that I like. I'm sitting here as
They
a
didn't want to
troll.
cross. Yeah.
I'm a troll, and you're even saying, dude, he crosses the line sometimes. He crosses. I can't
All
believe
right.
he
All
does
right.
that. But and then the Quartering can be like, dude, like what if the Quartering is drawing a line? It's kind of like okay, maybe there's some there. You
Oh,
may
Matt
enjoy it.
Walsh is savage when it comes to that issue. He is unrelenting, unapologetic, and there's no one that can out savage him on that issue. I don't think.
Okay, so that actually kind of brings me to let me see if I can manage to pull it up uh, in a quick way. Um, this right here, Candace Owens is savage though. Okay, I want to get into a little bit of Candace Owens because oh boy, I think there's a lot that people don't know about Candace
Okay,
Owens.
I want to read this out loud. Um, so someone named James, who is this? Is it Candace Owens is savage though? Well, and then the quarter responded saying, "No, she isn't. She's TMZ level 70
70
IQ
IQ.
bullshit. She's a lib in conservative clothing. She realizes being mid and POC was worth a ton more to conservatives than libs. She's a clown." That is absolutely wrong. But
I would seriously beg to differ. I would really beg to differ.
she's not a liberal.
You would okay, have you ever heard of social autopsy?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. That's why you think that that's why this doesn't make any sense to you. And
She does.
I'm
She
sorry to kind of
is
ambush
for
you on this a little bit.
enforcing. She is for like almost like a top-down approach to enforcing proper behavior, I guess.
Okay.
In some ways.
Sure. Okay. Enforcing proper behavior. So before she made, have you ever heard of Red Pill Black?
I mean, no.
Okay, that was Candace Owens before she became Candace Owens. You probably, I
Well, she
presume that
was a
you,
liberal. She was a liberal, and she
yeah.
became conservative as she grew up. She has
It's not that
conservative
she became
ideas.
conservative as
has
she grew up. It's not that she became conservative in like 6 months.
It was during.
You're
It was
not.
during the. It was the
Nobody's
same.
becoming
This was
conservative in 6
during the
months.
same time you were becoming less liberal.
And it took me longer than
Yeah,
6
so
months.
she was part of the Blexit and stuff, the
Yeah.
Black
What
exit.
I'm talking about predates all of that stuff. Okay. It predates all that stuff. So there's this. So basically, what her generalized story is that she was a liberal and she got bullied or whatever, and people made fun of her in whatever stupid ways that they did. And she got hurt feelings, and she was like, you know what? I want to develop this website called Social Autopsy, which is really all that it is an anonymous website where people get to take information. They can take screenshots. They can write things. They can make things up, and they can create a digital profile of a person that has where they live effectively. Like, here's the city that they live in, the state that they live in. Here's a picture of them. Here's just all of as much of the personal information as they even want to be able to give. They can give it on this website, and they can post it anonymously. So it effectively enables trolls to make things up about other people that then destroy their reputation, because anybody work people, and this was the intended aspect, the intended function of it was that workplaces would be able to go onto this thing, search up who it is, and then they can find all of the nasty tweets, all of the nasty things, or whatever the stories that people would have to say, and
Okay, so you're
they would
saying
be
she
able to
created a
make
website and it's bad? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
it was a terrible website that actually ended up being completely contradictive in
I'll
its
believe you on
functionality.
that. I'll
Huh?
believe you on that. I don't.
Yeah,
I'll believe you. There was a terrible website.
it's there.
You don't have
You
to
can look it
convince
up.
me. I'm not convinced.
This isn't even the bad aspect of it. This
So
is to At
I
this
am not
point, this is
looking
just a bad
to.
idea.
What I'm saying is that I'm not looking to characterize someone based upon any number of bad decisions that they've made in their life, or even um,
Well,
so like
just wait.
what I listen to is that I used to listen to a lot of her podcasts, and I listen to one every couple weeks now, just for whatever.
Well,
I would say she's
okay,
bitchy, and she says she's bitchy, that she's kind of how she is, and
sure.
she is how, and but she, I mean, she has real takes, and they're half ghetto and half
I present
conservative.
to you.
I don't think that she says she's anything that she's not. I don't think she's putting on a show.
Oh man.
I really don't think she's putting on a show. Like,
Of course you don't, and I'm not here to necessarily convince you that she is. But
but
I am interested
you are.
in telling you stories, and I am interested in telling you stories of how I ended up coming to the conclusion that she is in fact a sheep in wolf's clothing, or she's a wolf in sheep's clothing, the way that I see it. And one of the stories that really got to me is when all of this social autopsy stuff came out and people started making videos and people were criticizing, and they were like, hey, this is just a really bad idea. And at that point in time, people were more kind of like, and this is when she was red pill black, people were kind of like, okay, this is a really bad idea. I can't believe that you thought that this was something that you should do. But like, why is this still up? Like, why is this website still up? And they were asking legitimate, normal, basic questions. And her response to this was to say that all of this criticism that was being flung at her, that it was way harsher, way crazier than it actually was, and that those who were criticizing her, it was a some sort of a ploy, some sort of campaign of white supremacists who were out to get her.
That
Now,
sounds crazy. That doesn't sound
it
like
was
her.
not it does sound crazy because I lived through it. I watched the whole thing, and I was like, there was nobody who was like a white supremacist pushing any of this kind of stuff. It was literally her supporters asking valid questions, and she turned around and called all of them white supremacists, is what she did.
Okay. I don't. That doesn't sound good, obviously, but
It
I
did
know
not
nothing
sound,
about it.
and that
I'm just
was,
gonna let you. I mean, ultimately, you have this
you
information
can,
that I don't know, and I can just say, sure, sure. Sounds
sure.
bad. Sounds
It
bad.
sounds bad. And I'm not trying to, because I want to say this too. When she is talking about the things that she talks about, she is fantastic to listen to. She's very good at making the points. She understands the points and she understands the realm very well. She represents all of those things incredibly well. Better than most people do, right? Better than vast majority do. And but the position that I effectively hold is, hey, listen to her, enjoy what she has to say, go for it, but watch out. All I ever ask of anybody, hey, enjoy, but
So
don't be surprised.
so I'm not gonna go to
Don't be
I'm not gonna
surprised
go
when she
completely.
turns around and stabs everybody else in the back.
So I'm not gonna go completely all out like I do with most people in defending their honor because I don't know enough.
This
But
isn't she's not the one to
like
do,
for instance, like when people say, people would go through the idea of trying to say, "Oh, Rush Limbaugh is evil and all that kind of stuff, and he's a faker.
Yeah,
You just doing this, whatever, all that." Like I will fight you. Like I know
yeah,
that man. I know his soul. I know his heart. And that's actually why I feel about Glenn Beck in some ways too.
yeah,
He is a good man. It's like whether he's right or wrong, he's a good man with good intentions, and he's flawed and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff. So like, there's some people that like there's nothing amount you can't replace your relationship that I have with understanding their heart. And the only reason why I ever watch Glenn Beck anymore is because of his heart. Because I don't enjoy listening to his show as much anymore. I mean, I
yeah,
listen to some of his like his co-hosts that have their shows. I listen to them because Glenn Beck does too much grandstanding and talks for an hour about things that I don't care about in a really serious way. It's not entertaining. But anyway, so Candace Owens isn't one of those people that I will sit there and completely defend. Like there are some people that I will. Like
yeah.
um
Enjoy her content. I say enjoy her content,
right.
and all that I ever really push for with her, and I tell these stories just as like a ground, just as to build a foundation so that if and when, and I believe it is going to be a when, it does happen, when she stabs whoever in the back that she needs to stab, um, don't be surprised, and like, just watch out. I don't think that she's a person who really should hold power, because I don't think that
I mean,
she
she doesn't hold
wields it
power.
well.
She
I
doesn't
think
hold
she
power.
makes the case and she pushes the cause of what you and I, in many aspects, are pro, and I think she does it amazingly well, and I will always give her props for that. But I do not think that people should their trust in her. I don't think that people should allow her to be in
So
positions of power. I
I
would never want her to be
I will
elected to
agree with you
anything.
that I'm always apprehensive. I find myself often apprehensive when I'm listening to her, for whatever reason. So, meaning I'm questioning her angle and her take, perhaps because I don't know her well enough to know, or maybe it's because I suspect something like what you're talking about. Who knows? But I do definitely. Um, I appreciate a lot of the content she does, and I do think that she does. I don't know about her intentions, and I don't listen to her enough to know her heart in that way to figure that out, and I can't be bothered to do it, honestly. It's
Yeah,
it's like I can't. There's too many people out there to know their hearts and whatever. You have to see what kind of works they're doing
it's
now to
hard
see if
because
they're
not a lot of people, you don't have this background history of kind
yeah.
of who they were before you saw them, right? And so, have you? Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with Blair White.
Yep.
Okay, so and I'm sure you also know, Dave Rubin, the Rubin Report.
Yep.
I presume you never saw. I'm sure you didn't. There was a debate that, Candace Owens and Blair White had on the Dave Rubin show, and it surrounded the social
I've seen
autopsy
clips from it.
topic. Huh?
I've seen clips from it, but
Yeah,
I haven't watched
it's
it.
probably among the most difficult watches that you could have, because literally all it is just a screaming match, and it was absurd. I think that, yeah, I don't know. It was a wild one. I honestly, I don't even recommend people listen to it, but the way that she handled herself in that, in her complete inability to recognize and take accountability for her for just for the website, and just even be able to say this was a bad idea. I mean, literally all that anybody ever wanted was, can you acknowledge that this was a bad idea? And
Yeah.
it took her ages to do that. And it wasn't even like
It
this
was
was
about
like
that.
an apology.
It wasn't even her dealing with all the sexual lifestyles of their other two people there. It was all about her social autopsy.
Yeah. And it was hilarious too, because she starts off saying, "You are a man. I will not I'm going to address you as a man using male pronouns." And then she gets so like angry, and she's just losing it. She's completely losing it. And then she refers to Blair White as she and her, like, repeatedly throughout the whole thing.
It's because she presents herself so well. It's hard when you're not thinking about it, right?
Exactly. And I think that
Oh,
that's
I
something.
even just did it. I even just did it. It's because
Yeah.
Blair, even though
If you
for
pass
anyone
enough
listening, Blair White is a
trans
man
women.
that does a really, really good job at passing as being
Yeah.
a girl and dress up, dolled up, looks attractive, in fact.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. If you're talking and it naturally comes out that way, okay, it does. But I'm not.
And it's just hilarious because when you come out, it's just, I mean, this is, to me,
Yeah,
this
she
is
goes
like
out hard and
largely
then
meaningless.
she does that. Yeah,
It's largely meaningless, but I think it's just
yeah.
a funny thing that you can maybe even observe in nature of for humans, at least, is
I thought you were
like
going to talk about
we
this.
go we go based off of perception and how we, because it's all of that stuff, all of this kind of stuff is happening in the background of our minds, right? Subconsciously. And so when you're losing it and you don't have the focus enough to cut your own subconscious off and say him, right? It ends up just kind of being funny that, like, maybe you
Ultimately,
shouldn't be coming out making the statement like, I will not address you as
so
she,
if my
her.
subconscious is fooled, I'll give you the pronoun. That's what I think. I think that's
And I
what it
think
is.
that that's an appropriate, I think that's an appropriate way to just move through life
Yeah.
in general.
It's
Just,
like
if people should
it's
use
not
the
true,
pronouns that
but
naturally
it's
come
like,
to
you know
them.
what? If it naturally comes out of my face like that because it's obvious that you are as far as I can tell, if you wouldn't have told me before, I would have thought you were a girl. Then like, you know what? You win. You got the pronoun. You know.
Yeah. I think that's a fair way to go about things. It shouldn't be about
Yeah, but when you have some dude with a massive beard and whatever else, and he comes in, he's wearing a dress, call me ma'am or whatever. It's like,
yeah.
stop. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to completely bash Candace Owens, because I think she has a lot of value. I just want to take the opportunity
I will
to.
tell you about Ben Shapiro. There's plenty of things to agree or disagree with him on. There's plenty of things to disagree on him, but when I listen to when I have
He's
my
on point.
when I have my mind on and I point to it, he can eviscerate, like he can sit there and do a 15-minute build up talking about all these issues, and then he brings it back into a concise bop, 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 and then you have this. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just blew my freaking mind. It's like he does it all the time. He's so clever. He's just so innately clever. He has a high intelligence, and
Yeah.
he is
He's
very good at getting to something where I'm like, man, I need to use that wording because that is so good.
he's the
And
guy
then I
that
forget it.
started the whole, like, Ben Shapiro destroys, like,
Yes.
that concept had never been
Right. It's there
out there
because of him.
until him on college campuses.
So it's funny seeing him when he's young like that, though. He's very, very green and talking about it, and he's just like, and he does these things, and it's almost like, shut up. He's smaller than everybody out there. He's 5'6" or 5'7".
Well, and then they just drop the glasses down and stick the
Yes,
cigar
I
in
know.
his mouth, and it's like, dude, this is great.
So,
Like,
he was popularized by two different things: the gun debate with Piers Morgan. How dare you? Did
yeah,
you see that? Yeah. How
Yeah.
dare you? Say like, well, I just did because you're actually trying to put,
You're
trying
doing it
to,
right now. Like
yes, yeah, you're doing it right
literally
now.
doing it right
Yeah.
now.
So, and Shapiro was correct.
Yeah.
And,
Everybody could see it. It was
yeah.
right there.
And then there's the other one that made him popular, which was the trans one where he was on the show, like a Phil Donahue type, not Phil Donahue, that's the old show, like Dr. Phil or something. I don't know. He was on a show
It
with
was on something and puts the
where they
hand on
had a
the
couple
neck.
of trans dudes in there, or what, dudes that
Trans
are dressed
women.
as girls, whatever that's called. Um,
You'll leave in a stretcher.
Yes, he basically put his hand on his neck and said, like, say something like that again, and blah blah. And he threatened him. And I think Ben Shapiro sued just to put pressure on the fella to let him know. I think he dropped it at some point, but he made an issue of it
Yeah.
at first,
I
because
I
you
I
can't
think
threaten somebody like
yeah.
that.
I think those were his big moments.
He's like, that's quite a womanly threat you have there.
Yeah.
He said something
Yeah.
along those lines.
That's very womanly of
Yeah,
you
I
to threaten me
couldn't
like
remember. He
this.
said something along those lines.
Yeah. I never heard a woman say that they're gonna, meet me in the parking
We're
lot and I'm
gonna
gonna
be in
end
the
up on a
parking lot, right?
stretcher. Never heard that one before, and I've met a lot of women who don't like me, kind of a thing. So I don't know.
So, anyways, I don't see any character flaws with Ben Shapiro.
Me neither.
It's just a matter of if you're right, if you think he's right, if he has the right take on it, things or not.
Yeah, I mean Ben Shapiro. I feel I'm pretty solid on Ben Shapiro. I think he's the one thing I do hope is that Ben Shapiro is at least aware of Candace Owens and the potential.
So there's a Big Tent policy ish. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to, because not everybody is looking for the same red meat. They're not looking to just aim at the same red meat. So, for instance, they have what's her name? They have the young girl too, Brett Cooper. She's actually really really good and entertaining, but
mhm.
just too young. I purposely watch it only 10 minutes, now and then because
I like her
cool.
shorts. I think her shorts are
Yes,
good.
it's good. She's really good. What I'm saying, like, the idea is what they're trying to do is they're saying like this is the target demographic. We need based ideas everywhere. And so Candace Owen is a certain target demographic.
Yeah,
She's the best black conservative speaker out there that's like that. I mean,
true.
that is able to present in this type of way. Obviously, I'm sure there's some you can say like Condoleezza Rice and stuff are good speakers and stuff, but it's a different type of presentation.
Yeah.
So so I don't think
Nobody
that,
does it like Candace Owens, though. I mean, I think she's the best at what she does.
right. And
For her role, she's the best at it, for sure.
so what I'm saying is that I don't think that Ben Shapiro has to be in line with Candace Owens on things.
I don't think
I
so
don't think
either.
that I think they can be in the same network and they're like, hey, we're trying to appeal to the base side of everybody from all areas. And so that they're trying to pull in different stuff. And so that I don't think there's a problem with him being aware of Candace or
Well,
not.
that's not what I'm talking about. Like that kind of I think it's more like because my view is that she's possibly and I would say at minimum 51% a wolf in sheep's clothing. So I think
Um,
that while she plays the role to a degree, I think it's worth people knowing that there is a distinct possibility that she's not exactly who you think she is, and she is willing
um,
to stab you in the back, just as she did by calling all of her active supporters white supremacists who were attacking her.
but it might be a little bit like the Steven Crowder thing, where Steven Crowder is mentally like Crowder is mentally, it's like he has all the good intentions, but he's just nuts in some ways. He's just bonkers in some ways. And sometimes some people have a certain perspective on the world that work until it hits at just the right angle to where, whoa, that doesn't work anymore. Where like whatever they do just doesn't work anymore. So I can
Like
see that
Milo.
happening with Candace, where
Yeah.
like something happens where she's like, oh no, you didn't, and and changes up because of a different
and makes
because she's
things up.
posting up against something else.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because of some sort of like Mulvaney type thing where he's purposely trying to get clicks. Because she's married. She's married to a rich British guy. They got money. There's nothing into it. She doesn't
Sure.
have to just do it for fame. It's like she's there to give her own ideas at this point. That's why it doesn't pass a sniff test for me to think that she's doing it to create some sort of fake something or other. I guess
Hey
you could
man,
want fame.
I hope that she is real. I hope that when she speaks, she is speaking honestly. It's
I
just the
think she
problem for
is,
me is
but
I
that
have
might
been
change more.
tainted. I have been tainted by
Yeah.
her past actions and
So-
how she has handled accepting responsibility for her own actions, and the way that in the
that can be hard.
process of avoiding that responsibility, she backstabbed and turned on all of her fans by calling them white
That
supremacists.
sounds
I thought
bad,
that
and
was
maybe
a disgusting thing.
that sounds bad, and if that's true, I don't approve of that. But I see her as someone that takes a strong stand for now and doesn't want to apologize for honest mistakes she's made in the past. I mean, I'm extrapolating that, but
I'm not interested in apologies from her. I was just interested in
like that.
just
Yeah, it was a bad choice.
just acknowledging it.
Yeah, bad choice.
I mean, it's just I mean, you don't have to apologize for making the stupid website. Nobody even really cared because it was such a bad idea that it wasn't even.
Yeah.
It wasn't even. You couldn't. It killed itself. It would just kill itself.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, yeah, you could have just said, yeah, that was a bad idea. It didn't work out,
Yeah.
And I've kind of moved on.
I always
from that.
agreed, no matter.
And I think things would have been way different from my perspective.
No matter who it is, I always agree to that. I said that so many times when I think about when Trump says something, I was like, Trump, just you don't have to admit things. You be like I wish that everything wasn't always the best or the worst and things like that. There's so many people where it's like it's fun and it's trolly and it's good in some ways, but sometimes it's but to be centered and to be totally in command of your not worried about your ego and things, being able to say yeah, I've made a couple bad business choices in my life and they've done whatever else. He'll never say that. Trump will never say that. They're always the best business choices. We had some bad partners. There were things that didn't work out because of someone other than himself.
But he's not blaming his audience.
Okay.
He's not blaming his audience for the stupid things that he's done and the stupid things that he said.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I feel like that's where the line kind of really got crossed.
So it is unlikely that I will ever watch an expose on that whole era. It would have to be done by the Blaze or something about the deep-seated background of whatever. If I did watch a 2-hour documentary, maybe I could be convinced because I've seen enough. I've seen enough of her in podcasts and her going on for the Blexit, and I've seen enough of those type of deeds that it's hard to just completely sour me completely on her.
I'm not trying. And I want to be clear. I'm not trying to sour it completely. All I'm trying to say is
I agree.
There's a potential.
I agree that is probably true about most individuals, and maybe
you're probably right.
It's so
you're probably right.
I count myself as one of the few people in the world that owns mistakes. I love to do it. So
it helps you grow, right? And
I love it.
I love it. Take a bit of accountability is nice.
I love when someone that cares about me knows enough to say that, hey, Ryan, when you did that over there, that actually didn't help. It actually hurt because of this type of thing. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Because what I'm actually trying to do is to try to do things that help. So why would you make me feel good but not telling me about something no, please tell me. Or if I'm doing something to be nice to someone else, if you're doing something to be nice to a wife all the time but you're not really, but as a wife, you're not appreciating it. Mm-hmm. How about you just say, this is not a criticism against my ex or anything like that. There's nothing. This is just
A generalization.
Yeah, generalization. Why don't you just say like, I really appreciate what what you're trying to do for me, but I actually hate it when you do that. I don't like this for whatever reason. So like, I want people to be able to say things like that, and I love it. Like even with customers, do things like that where they know that I'm a straight shooter type of guy, and when I walk in and whatever else, like they'll say some things like, yeah, hey, when you left the bottles over here because of whatever it is, just some stupid thing. I'm always like, thank you, yes, no problem. I love when people are straightforward and say what they want, and then they're not trying to just go with it because they don't want to offend you. So yes, I wish more people were like that. Where like you could say something, and even if they haven't thought about it being bad, say from that perspective, think, well, I don't know if I'm going to go all the way there, but that is, thank you. I'll think about that. Even if there's just something like that where you're just reflective, like I don't think I'm going to go all the way to the conspiracy that you put forth, but it's, worthy of reflection.
There's something of value that's there.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, that was fun and engaging.
That was just us randomly wanting to chat about personalities, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of some things kind of happened, and the quartering went on a fun Twitter.
All of the stories
or whatever
today. All the stories in the news today are going to be in the news tomorrow, so we might be able to take a conglomeration of them tomorrow or something. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, we got another show tomorrow, so if you made it this far, drop a like. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. We got more content on the way. We hope you had fun.
I mean, I had a lot of fun doing that. I do have anxiety though about talking about things that no one knows about. So without giving it prep, and I got to figure out how.
Don't worry about it, because they can just go. They can go now. They have
Google
who's that? And they can go look them up. Tim Pool, who's that? I can go look them up. Candace Owens, what's this? I can go look. Well, they got the keywords. Now they get to go adventure down the rabbit hole and discover things on their own. And I think that that's one of the best things about the internet. And I think it's a fantastic thing. So don't worry too much. Don't have your anxiety blow through the roof over something like that. Don't worry about it. Anyways, I think we're all good.
Yeah.
Thanks, and I'll see you on the next one.